This is Houston, contact with a test 1.
Touchdown confirmed.
Hi folks, and welcome to Space Cowboys episode...
I don't know, 9?
I think it's 9.
I think it's 9. At a certain point, we're going to lose track, I'm
Very
sure.
soon, during this episode, I will check, but not right now.
I think, Herbert, it's episode 9, and welcome everyone. Thank you for
Welcome to
listening.
you, Tyse.
Welcome to you, Herbert. And welcome to our guest.
Our guest, Roel Eerkens
Yes.
of T-, one of our Dutch space companies. It's a rocket company.
That's correct, yeah.
Rockets are your core business.
You're a rocket scientist.
Apparently so, yeah.
That makes you super smart.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Depends on the topic, obviously.
Very cool. So today we're going to talk about rockets and building rockets.
Yes,
and
we are.
not just any rockets, but it's tiny as a needle. No.
They're not SpaceX size, I would say. That's a bit too much maybe for
No.
the
But you
Netherlands.
found a niche. You found
Yeah.
a niche in orbit. And we're going to talk all about it.
Yeah.
But
That's right.
But not before we first talk about what happens out there in space or close
Well,
or in
And are we
Earth
going
orbit.
to mention the sponsors?
Yeah. Let's do that after.
Okay.
Let's first
Fine.
chat about what happened.
That's good enough for me. What's
Yeah.
your story of the week then?
Well, there were a couple again. A lot is happening. But you gotta sort of pick one. And I want to go back to sort of like, this is Space Cowboys. We want to talk about space exploration as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it fascinating that if you look at the outer solar system, that we haven't really explored it that much.
No.
There was a new moon discovered circling Neptune. It's called Hippocamp. I saw that.
That's a weird name.
It's a super weird name. And supposedly this was already a moon that was photographed by Hubble in 2013, but they didn't know where it was exactly, and now suddenly they figured it out. But I found it fascinating that there's still a new moon around Neptune to be discovered, and it made me realize, like, we haven't really been back ever since Voyager passed by.
That's true.
Yeah, why are we not orbiting Neptune or Uranus? Or
Because it's far
Pluto.
away. It's bloody far away.
That's a pretty good answer. That's a pretty good answer. It's probably really very expensive again.
And I believe there's tens of moons, maybe hundreds of moons around Neptune waiting to be discovered.
Yes, you would think so, right?
Ever
Yeah.
smaller ones, of course.
Yeah, and it's probably the Hippocamp is probably a fragment of another moon that was already circling Neptune. So
How big is it anyway?
let's see, how big is it?
I seem to remember
Because
about 30 kilometers, 30 miles or something.
Yeah,
thereabouts.
it's the smallest moon yet discovered in orbit around Neptune.
Okay,
So
yeah.
and I know that there are a couple of there have been ideas about going back there, but there's nothing literally in the works right now.
No, don't think so.
To go out there, but there's a lot to explore.
But tell me about this Hippocamp moon.
Mm-hmm.
There was a couple of weird things about the orbit, right? Very low, very fast.
Yeah.
I seem to remember.
Yeah, no, I didn't go that far into it. I found it just a fascinating fact that it's in there.
Just
what did you hear
the
about
sole
it?
fact that it was a new moon.
Yeah, well,
of Neptune.
especially around Neptune. It's more that it took Voyager to figure out that to actually even have close-up shots of them. Most of the things that the pictures that you see from Neptune are from Voyager. Still, there's a couple of pictures from Hubble that were taken by Hubble, but we hardly know anything about these places yet. So New Horizons had a much better look at Pluto than Voyager had of
Because
Neptune or Uranus.
technology has gone forward.
Exactly. So it sometimes it feels like, oh yeah, it's our cosmic backyard, and we sort of already know, and then it constantly we realize, like, no, we don't know anything, and there's so much. So we can talk about human space exploration to Mars, we can talk about a moon base, all those things, but there's so much, and we talk about exoplanets, but we hardly know anything about the planets in our own solar system.
You know what happens when I type Hippocamp in Google, just like that?
No.
I get all kinds of information about camping sites in
really?
France.
Okay, that's
So-
super weird. Yeah. So I don't know. What is the total of moons that we have discovered now? Then
Oh,
because
man.
there's so.
You
there's
mean
whole
around Neptune?
Around Neptune, yeah. I'm already looking.
Not
like
that much.
1,
Maybe-
2, 3,
maybe 10
4,
max?
5, 6, 7. 8. I'm counting 8 right now, but I guess we have to invite a guest who knows everything about the outer solar system.
Yeah.
That's one for on the list.
We will. I'm just quickly reading some stuff about Hippocamp. It's 20 miles across.
Yeah, so you were right.
Astronomy.com tells me.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing too much about the orbit right now.
Well, and I didn't see anything about the orbit either. I'm seeing that it's 14 is the number of total moons that we've now discovered.
14?
Around Neptune. 14.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. 7 inner moons, including Hippocamp, along with 6 outer moons, and Neptune's largest moon, of course.
Okay, and all you listeners, you can Google Hippocamp yourself, Hippocamp and Neptune, because otherwise you'll get stuck into camping sites.
Yeah, exactly. Hippocamp, yeah. So that was my story of the week, but it's the story of the next few years, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Roel, what's your story of the week?
My story of the week was difficult to pick, but Spaceship 2. Getting back into service and also
that's Virgin Galactic.
Yeah,
Virgin Galactic's
space tourism.
Space tourism.
Richard Branson.
I think first female commercial passenger.
Yeah.
So
wow.
That's a new one as well. And I'm really glad that they managed to come back from the setbacks they had in the previous years.
Because they had a fatal casualty.
Yeah,
and all that.
Yeah, it was terrible. Yeah. What was her role again? Was she just a commercial? I thought she also had a function or something.
I think she was responsible for new passengers.
Yeah,
that kind of.
Yeah, so she was the first sort of non-pilot to go up, but she did have some sort of. She was the director of the tourism part.
Anybody got a name, by the way?
Let's
Google that. No,
no worries.
We can solve that.
Yeah,
on the fly.
I was once there in New Mexico and near the spaceport. It's very desolate. There's not much there,
as it should be.
Yeah, and it was so funny because the lady who toured us around was when we left. She said. I mean, it's literally it's 45 minutes down back then it was a dirt road. I think now they paved it from a town called Truth or Consequences, and then Truth or Consequences is hours from the nearest
Beth Mosey's.
And so when we left and when we shook hands and said farewell, she said, "Hey, so if you guys are ever in the neighborhood, hey, please give us a call, and really." Really, if you're ever in the neighborhood, please call. There's no one here. So
it's not a place where if you accidentally take a wrong exit, that you end up at Mojave Airport and Spaceport.
No, it's really in the middle of nowhere, it must be. This was in 2011 that I was there, so maybe 2010 even. So it's been a while, okay. And. Now, I know there have been developments. I think they even have places to stay close by now. So now, because they're building it into a tourism site, it needs to have all the amenities, of course, that a tourist resort needs. So, if, dear listener, you are planning to go up there, then there's probably a bubble bath waiting for you. Yeah, somewhere.
Should be quite comfortable.
Yes. Actually, Truth or Consequences, the town is very known for its hot springs. So there's a lot of spas pretty close by the spaceport. Yeah. So if you go up into space and then you go back down to the little town of Truth or Consequences, then you can go to one of these spas. Yeah. But I know this goes far, but it's Truth or Consequences is the name of the town because I think there was some sort of radio show in the 50s, and then this town, I forgot what the old name was like, well, if we join the game show, then they promised that they would change their name into the game show or something. So that's why
let's rename the town.
Yeah, so that's why the name of the town is Truth or Consequences, and that's where the spaceport is.
Now, Roel, you mentioned this event, Virgin Galactic launching its first test passenger, first female astronaut and all that. How close are they, in your view, to starting the real space tourism business that they were going to do?
It's obviously difficult to say from out here. Like any setbacks that they had in the previous couple of years, they didn't anticipate those. But I think that when they're moving forward and the maturity of the technology is improving, and what also happened is that a lot of the R&D went into the company, and there's a lot of collaboration or relationship between the stuff going on with Launcher One, so with Virgin Galactic's air-launched access to orbit. So I think they're moving forward quite strongly. Yeah. But difficult to say. Obviously,
they can have more setbacks.
It's part of the deal. If you're developing, you encounter problems, and the way forward is to solve them.
Yeah, and they had setbacks, of course, but especially because it included fatalities. It was a really big setback, of course. It was a tragedy and a drama for all the people involved, of course. But if you looked at their timeline, they didn't even have that many setbacks. It was just that the setback that they had was so catastrophic that it gave the whole project a different. It put the project in a different light, I think. Even though sometimes a rocket can blow up or some test part can blow up, but then usually there's not always people involved. But in this case, it was, of course, 2 people, I believe, right?
Yeah,
pilot and co-pilot.
Yeah, that's right.
Terrible. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, when are we now then finally going up? If this was the first one.
That was actually my question.
Yeah. I think this. I think. 2 weeks ago we had one of the stories of the weeks. Stories of the week. Yeah. Was that Richard Branson wants to do it on the moon, the date of the moon landing, right? So. Yeah. So July.
That will be 20th of July.
20th of July. Yeah.
This year.
This year. Yeah. So it's exactly 50 years after the moon landing. That was his symbolic. So that's what they're aiming for right now. Yeah. Okay. Couple of months. Yeah. Okay. Hey, and Herbert, your story of the week.
Yeah. Well, I have 2. We do a lot of looking forward in this podcast. Mm-hmm. I'd like to look back just for a couple of seconds, because I encountered this YouTube video entitled "You Won't Believe How the First Spy Satellites Worked."
Okay.
And I had a hunch. And
there was a little man, Yuri Gagarin, was just taking pictures from a little pod. Yes,
with his iPhone, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not far off, except for the iPhone. First spy satellites photographed.
Sorry, that was me.
That's your smartphone working. Mm-hmm. The first spy satellites worked with film.
Film?
They had film on board.
Okay.
Just a little roll of film. And what happened when the film was full, it was jettisoned, thrown into the atmosphere. Well, that's simplifying things. But it was thrown down, and it was, on the way, it was caught by a plane. And then they went on, of course, to develop the film and everything.
Whoa.
But you can hardly believe...
Caught by a plane?
Yep.
Midair?
Midair.
What?
Cool.
Yeah. And according to this video, you ought to go and see it. According to this video, that was actually the easy part, because the difficult part was throwing it in such a way that it could be caught in the first place. In the right region, you know. Okay, so...
so something happened this week that now has upgraded the system.
That's fun already. But one little detail is also very interesting. How do you get a new roll of film inside the satellite? The answer is you don't.
No,
the first spy satellites were the most expensive throwaway cameras ever.
Wow.
For sure.
You can hardly imagine this in an era of video cameras and digital stuff.
And just wirelessly transmitting something.
So that was really an eye-opener for me, and I think for younger people even more so.
And this was in the 60s?
That's right.
Yeah, in the 60s, yeah.
Well, maybe 70s. I ought to check that. But okay, we'll put the video in the show notes. Everyone can go see it for itself.
Because I remember Voyager always having, it had sort of like TV cameras. So that it had already sort of like an analog signal.
Analog ones.
Yeah, so of course there was no film involved or anything. Yeah, that would be weird. You would need to develop the film up there somewhere and then beam it back down. Yeah, oh wow.
Above. Okay, so that's one story, and another one. We talked about Hayabusa 2 a couple of times before, and it's in the vicinity of asteroid Ryugu.
Yeah. The Japanese
and Hayabusa
mission
is a Japanese mission, and it has done its first vacuuming of dust from the asteroid.
Of course.
It has shot a bullet into the asteroid itself. Dust went up, and they collected it.
Well,
and
they hope, because they don't know.
Right.
They don't know until it's back if it actually collected something.
They don't even know for sure.
And I had this picture in my head of them just finally they've recovered it, and they had this epic mission to the other solar system, and then they open up the little box or whatever, and then
maybe
it's like,
only find their own bullet or something. You know?
yeah, something like that, and it's like completely empty.
You never can tell. But they're doing a second one, which will go into the asteroid even deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And throw up more stuff, and a different kind of stuff, of course, because the most superficial dust will have been exposed to radiation and whatnot. And then they're going to probe for a deeper level and hope for material that is more virgin, etc.
Oh yeah. Wow.
So it's
all
very interesting.
Exactly. I saw that story too. And it's fascinating.
And we'll be following this, of course.
Of course.
As time goes on.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Yeah.
That's right.
So thank you so much, Herbert, for those updates.
You're welcome.
Before we go to our guest.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Now is the time for the sponsor message. No, yeah, because the Space Cowboys is supported by people like you, listeners, on Patreon.
That's right.
Yes. So if you go to patreon.com/Space Cowboys, you can make
Get rid of your money.
Get rid of your money, and
that's basically it.
Yeah, get rid of your money and help us make these episodes for you guys, where we talk about space exploration in the modern era.
Absolutely.
I'd love to hear tips if we have colleagues doing the same thing. I follow a couple of people on YouTube who talk about space travel, but I don't know of any podcasts who are really just doing roundups with interesting guests. Like all of our colleagues are
there must be
welcome, but shoot an email.
Podcasts out there.
Yeah, but not about space travel in this sense. Everybody has their own.
There should be,
but a space news podcast. I don't know.
Do you know any, Roel?
No, you were the first one to get introduced to me.
Okay, well.
Exactly, so we'll see.
Somebody has to do it.
Yeah, and you can follow us on, you're already listening to us, so you are following us somewhere, but you can follow us on Spotify, on iTunes, and on YouTube. We're also on YouTube, so subscribe over there. So then, without further ado.
Roel Eerkens.
Yes. Yeah. Welcome from T-minus.
T-minus Engineering.
Yeah, you have your own company, your own space company, and your company has its own rocket.
That's true, yeah.
So how did that come to pass?
Yeah. So no, what happened is that during our time at the university, I co-founded this company with 3 other people: Mark Uitenau, Hein Olthoff, and Erik Smit. And we're all graduates from the TU Delft.
Technical University.
TU Delft,
yeah.
Technical University.
When did you graduate?
2013.
Okay, yeah.
So not quite recently, but also because of I was already running the company before I graduated.
Oh wow,
that's always interesting.
Really?
Yeah. Sometimes you just have to do it. But yeah, we met up because we all like building rockets at a student society. We did that, and we were fairly successful with that with Stratos 1, which was a European record holder for the highest rocket launched by amateur students or by students in Europe. And when we looked at the technology that was available at launch ranges and regarding the sounding rocketry, we kind of figured out, okay, there's room for improvement. There's room for new technology. There's room for smarter stuff. And why not do it with a team that's already experienced in that as a student group?
That already knew each other and
that were already acquainted with each other and know what everybody was up to.
Exactly.
We just started and we went from there. And what we do is we design, build, and launch sounding rockets. So we don't go into orbit. We just go up and probe the up layers of our atmosphere. Our main product that we're developing goes up to 120 kilometers. So nice, just above the Van Garman line. Nowhere is reaching space. And our customer base are typically research institutes. So institutes that want to connect.
What's the name of that line?
Van Garman.
Van Garman line. Okay, and that's at 100 kilometers.
Yeah. So going back to the Spaceship Two, they reached I think 90 kilometers.
Oh yeah,
So it's a
little bit
discussion,
higher.
You've been there for years.
No. We're still under development. I have to be clear on that. So,
Okay.
we're aiming for that, and we've done test launches of our vehicle in Holland, 3 of them. But yeah, being so densely populated, I wouldn't launch here. I would go to Mojave or any other place in the world to launch higher up, and that's our goal for this year.
Because you've been launching these rockets from the Netherlands.
Yeah, military side. Yeah.
Oh, military side. Okay, yeah. Because it's unheard of. I think that I've never heard of rockets flying from this country.
Well,
Does it happen?
Well, it depends on how you define rocket, obviously. But there's been an active community of enthusiastic people launching their own rockets, building their own rockets.
Mm-hmm.
A student society in Delft called DARE does a lot of rocket launches as well, and we've done it as well. And
hey, if Florida can do it, then we can do it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. But yeah, the height limitations are sometimes a challenge for us.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But are you saying so far you haven't commercially exploited your rocket?
No, we the rocket which we're aiming up, the one that goes up to 120 kilometers, is still under development.
Okay,
but we have
that one.
Smaller rockets that we use for educational purposes, and we have other R&D projects running that have also acquired quite a bit of knowledge on rocket propulsion.
Sure. And the name of the rocket is the Dart, right?
The Dart, yeah.
The Dart.
That's a fun name.
Yeah, it's a very fun
nice name.
Yeah, because you're throwing that little dart.
Yeah.
Only to that one region. Why that region?
Well,
of 120
if you get a really big helium balloon, like immense, like the ones that get released from the northern parts of Europe, Kiruna or other places.
Kiruna is in Sweden, right?
Yeah, it is in Sweden. Yeah. It's a sounding rocket range, but also a balloon range. They go up to 40, 50 kilometers altitude max.
Yeah.
And if you have a satellite, then the typical orbit is above 200, 250 kilometers. You have some eccentric orbits.
Okay,
but
and that leaves a forbidden region.
The ignorosphere.
The ignorosphere. Oh yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a really good, difficult place to get measurements, and
you are de-ignoring that.
We are. We're trying to. As Tyse already mentioned, like we hardly know anything about the deep sea. We hardly know anything about the far away. But even in our own atmosphere, right above us, there's still a layer that's quite unknown. And obviously, scientists want to get there, and we want to accommodate those
really?
scientists.
Okay, so that's why you do it. Yeah, interesting.
And so what kind of science is being done in that region?
So atmospheric science, but also particle physics, like for example, the Northern Lights.
Oh, yeah.
What happens with those waves? What happens with those particles?
Because they happen right in that area. The Northern Lights.
Part of them occur in that region. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we've never flown anything through the Northern Lights, so to speak.
Well, we were trying to do that, and I think there were some sounding rockets that were successful in that. But if you look at like the current state of sounding rocketry, it's typically 1970s, 60s surplus military stuff that becomes outdated, becomes unreliable, and is very, very big.
Yeah.
So these rockets are typically in above the millions in euros. Whereas, with your phones, with our electronics, we can do measurements that are interesting in that area while having a limited volume. So bringing them up there is interesting, but bringing them up to a certain specific location when there's, for example, activity, when there is Northern Light going on, that's something that's really difficult with a huge rocket. Our rocket is only like 4 meters tall.
4 meters.
Yeah, so it's a really small rocket. Therefore, also cost efficient.
Yeah,
and we can launch it quite quickly.
Yeah,
I was about to ask you for some specs.
Yeah.
Okay, you're giving me the height of the rocket itself.
Yeah.
So how about its lifting power? How about the height it can reach?
Its girth, like how thin is it?
Yeah.
So it's 120 millimeters wide. The body about.
What?
Yeah.
Nothing.
No, and it's a boosted dart concept. So there's one part that contains like all the propellant. And there's on top of that there's a part called also called the dart. Really confusing for everybody, but and that's inert, so it doesn't have any propellant in there, no control systems.
The tip of the dart.
The tip of the dart, as I would say.
Yeah.
And that flies on inertia. So we accelerate it with the booster.
Okay. Yeah.
Like 8 kilonewtons of average thrust, a little bit more than that. We're still also in the development of our propulsion system. But it can carry it up to like Mach 5 at 8 kilometers altitude. That's our current...
8 kilometers?
8 kilometers altitude.
Okay.
And it travels at Mach 5, so really fast.
Right.
Yeah.
And then purely on the aerodynamic shape of the dart and the booster, they will separate. It's purely mechanical. It's really easy, really
cool.
Cost efficient, I would say.
So there's more drag to the back side than to the front side, and therefore it separates.
Therefore it separates, and then it free falls from that 8 kilometers Mach 5 to 120 kilometers altitude without any propulsion.
Without any, it goes up another 90 kilometers.
Yeah, because there's no atmospheric drag in that area, or well, there is, but very little. You're just purely converting.
How close are you to escape velocity anyway with these Mach? What did you say? Mach 8?
We're Mach 5.
Mach 5.
We're far away.
Far.
So we're not going to compete with the big boys in the low Earth orbit anytime soon. But yeah, we're developing a technology that will eventually can carry us there. But for now, our main goal is this niche. We're 7 people. So the
whole company is 7 people.
Yeah, right now.
Right.
And obviously, our ambitions is to grow. And we got a lot of the stuff we do is in-house, so we have full control about all design of electronics, design of structures, design, and in the end, also we're working on design of the propulsion system. So,
speaking of specs, how many kilograms of payload can you launch?
Yeah, so it's a good question, and typically for low Earth orbit, it's like how many kilograms can you get into orbit?
Yeah.
For us, the limiting factor is not so much the mass, but more the volume. So it's a really thin dart. So it's about like 3 centimeters and 40 centimeters tall, which is tiny.
3 centimeters and 40 centimeters tall.
Yeah. But you can still...
Can't compare it to anything.
No, you can't compare it to anything.
Lamppost on the street?
Yeah, not even. It's like an umbrella, almost like only the stick that holds an umbrella up.
Traffic sign?
It's a stack of €2 coins.
Yeah.
40 cents.
Yeah, like American quarter, sort of. Yeah.
You know that better.
Broomstick.
Well, but in that payload you can put, well, fortunately, microelectronics quite a bit. But you can also put injectables in there, or some trace chemicals that either react with the atmosphere, which you can again observe from the ground. So either by visual or by radar. And what's moving along as well is not ejectables, but extending structures. So even if you can fold it up quite nicely and expand it, when you're up there, then you can do cool stuff.
What kind of stuff have you already done? Have you been able to do some experiments?
Well, we did obviously when we're launching our rockets in Holland. We put in the basic acceleration gyroscope, those kinds of things to see what kind of behavior our rocket has, and to see what kind of performance it gets, what kind of aerodynamic behavior is up there for our vehicle. So we have payloads of that, and they are available for our customers as well, as well as transmitters and these kinds of things.
Oh yeah, Because you said you have 7 people working there.
Yeah.
Hang on, I'm still longing for more specs.
Okay, Herbert, you get your specs first.
So how long does a typical dart flight take? Duration?
So the propulsive phase, so the motor is burned up in something like 5 seconds, so really fast. And then the fall and the free fall is in the minutes, but it also depends on what kind of mission. So if you have something that you want to send back telemetry, you can take a parachute with you, eject the payload, use the parachute in the lower layers to elongate the time for your data to be transmitted back to the ground.
Sure.
Because, well, the flight itself and the free fall is quite fast, but you can extend that with
You can hover a bit.
You can slow down the descent.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hey, and what about cost? Suppose I have this, maybe the ashes of some deceased relative. If I have anything to send up, what will you charge me?
So, like a complete mission is really complicated to put a number on.
Mm-hmm.
Like the vehicle is under 100K, but you're not there with the vehicle. You also need our support to be able to launch it. You need a launch range and other facilities. Mm-hmm. But in the end, what the typical mission would be is that we don't launch one. We launch like 10 of these in a day in order to...
10 darts, 10 rockets.
Darts. Yeah, that's our... Because the natural phenomena, they change over time. They change with daylight, with conditions. So if you really want to do interesting science, it's a unique opportunity for this kind of price point to be able to launch multiple of these.
And the cost of the launch site are then shared by the various customers.
Or the same customer, but gets a lot more data.
Yeah. And is it single use?
Yeah, it's a throwaway.
Yeah, it's a throwaway. And so it just gets discarded into, I think, the ocean then, I guess?
Yeah, it depends on your launch range. So,
you don't want a spike of, 3 centimeters wide coming back down on a city.
No, you won't find it back if it hits the ground, for sure.
Yeah.
No, but there are launch sites that accommodate a land landing as well. So the bigger area seems, the US obviously, but also Australia and Sweden. They have partly areas that are bigger than our country that you can where nobody lives and where you can safely launch these rockets.
And how many darts have you launched so far?
So we launched 3 of them in Holland, and we'll launch. Presumably, we'll launch 3 of them this year again, but then to greater heights. That's our goal for this year.
But and when it comes to how this works, is how does it transmit the data then? It measures its data and then it starts falling back to Earth. Yeah. Is that when it quickly starts transmitting it to some ground station?
I would suggest to my customers to always be transmitting. But if it really depends on your mission type. Somebody really just wants to know that like this chemical was released, like one piece of information that's critical for their understanding, and then they on that radio package they'll observe from the ground, whereas others might want to have a lot more data and they will constantly transmit as much data as possible during the complete flight. So difficult to say. The one of the added values of this system is also because you're separating the propulsion system and the payload carrier, the dart or the small dart. I can give it to you. You can go on a plane. You can go to your research institute. You can integrate your payload, but see each other at the launch range. I'll integrate it with the complicated logistics that we took care of, and then we'll launch it. Yeah. So it's really advantageous to have such a easy way of operations, whereas in the typical mission, you're confined to certain rules that make logistics a bit more complex.
Yeah.
It's what's fascinating for me is that this started out of you were a college kid and a rocket enthusiast.
Yeah.
And you started a company. It sounds like something from a boy's book. It's like these things actually happen. How hard is it to start your own rocket company?
You go to the Chamber of Commerce, you fill in a couple of forms, and then
you build a website, get your Instagram going.
Fill in some forms, that's all.
You first design really bad business cards. That's also a really important
step. Of course, very important.
Really bad business plan as well, maybe?
Maybe. Well, I think you can even start without a business plan. That's not a problem.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yes, Wi-Fi passwords with profanity in it, also very important. Yeah.
Disclaimer, haven't heard of it. No, so what are
because you were you able to one is how did you start this company, but also because you have 7 people working there already, how did you get it all funded if you don't have real commercial jobs yet and you're still developing? It for me it sounds something like yes, it's possible, but you have to be either crazy or super rich.
Super rich would be nice to start, but we weren't that lucky. So now what we did was, especially in the beginning days, was a lot of engineering consultancy on the side. So what we did was a bunch of projects that bring in the money, and the people that were at the company, they could spend it basically on our own product development. So we did, and we also did some educational projects for ESA education, but also for the Netherlands and also for Belgium, just launching rockets for high school kids to have a great time. And obviously we need more people in science. So there was funding available for these kinds of projects. CanSat, by the way, if you have young children want to join.
What's the name?
CanSat. It's a satellite in a can.
Oh.
And we launched those satellites in a can, like a Coke can. We launched
Even
them up.
smaller than a CubeSat.
Yeah, I think so. Not too much of a difference.
CanSat competition.
But the main difference is that these don't go into orbit, but they go up in, for example, our rocket.
Sure.
We'll bring them up to 1 kilometer. We eject them, and they go up on a parachute. And
1
go down.
kilometer in this case.
Yeah, in this case.
Okay.
So we can launch that safely in Holland and Belgium, and in general parts of Europe.
Yeah. And so for the past 6 years, 5 years, 6 years, you've been working. So everything went into product development all the time.
Yeah.
If you had a bit of money, if you had,
especially in the early years. Being straight out of university, we didn't need much, so we could invest a lot in our own development. And the way that the company grew, we also got more funding available from Dutch government, either locally in like the south of Holland, which we're located in Delft. They've got some funds for R&D, which we were able to tap into, but also from ESA, the Netherlands Space Office, and ESA also supported us with R&D funding. But obviously, you really should, you're really milestone based. So they want a certain product. You build it, and it's in line with what we were developing. Yeah,
because of course I don't want to instantly compare you to SpaceX because it's a completely different order of magnitude. But are there a lot of competitors of you out there that not so much are working on this specific niche that you're working in, but small rocket companies that are trying to fill all the niches, basically?
What we've seen in the past years that are more and more companies being able to sustain themselves. Most of these companies, they typically aim for a higher payoff in a low Earth orbit. So in our niche, we're the one.
Everybody wants to be Elon Musk. I would assume,
it's a good example to follow. He did some good stuff.
So what's your ambition? You just now you said we may eventually reach orbit. So what do you actually want to achieve?
So first Dutch commercial company that reaches space. That's a good challenge for now. If we're completely own the company, and we would like to keep that in this way until we. So
no venture capitalists.
No, it's also like our strategy is to grow slowly but steadily.
Good idea.
And because we are acquiring and have a lot of the knowledge and IP in-house, it's fairly, you say easy, it's never easy.
No.
But it's relatively easy to expand.
It's not like it's rocket science.
No, it's not.
Sorry, I had to get that one in there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just get it over with and then we can continue.
I had to do it, yeah.
All right. But speaking of Elon Musk, you must be following what he does with a certain, interest.
Yeah.
So let me just ask you, where were you when you first heard about the successful landing of a SpaceX rocket back on the launch pad?
Oh, I really don't know.
You don't?
Sorry, no.
So it's not that important to you, right?
It is, but my memory just fades on me.
Okay.
No, where I was, no, I don't know. My memory of
but it's a milestone, right?
Yeah,
for you as well.
Yeah, for sure.
As a rocket scientist.
Yeah, the complete growth of his company in the early days, also challenges with some failures, being able to push through, and then eventually, going for like the big funds from NASA, being able to really move forward with that.
Yeah,
it's an immense performance and immense. It's really impressive.
Yeah, but things like that, do they make you think, I'd like to reuse my darts, for instance? Or is it somehow not an option?
Technically, it's not. Yeah, for us, it's not an option. For us, it's not economically viable. So, like, Elon also pays for his ships to return to port and to refurbish. And for our price point, like, the ship is more expensive than the dart.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
But
Okay.
obviously, like, what is interesting in that respect is that he, obviously, with the space shuttle, we had an idea of reusability, and he, as a newbie or an unknown person, started landing his boosters, which was like very unconventional and which was frowned upon, I would say, in the beginning. And then he landed 2 of them at the same time, and everybody's like, okay, this is like science fiction, but it's not fake news.
Yeah, it took 2
That's
of them
right.
to really convince people.
Yeah, maybe it did. Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah.
but that's something that you can achieve change.
Yes.
So typical competitors of
really
ours.
paradigm change, right?
Yeah.
I mean, NASA never did anything but throw away rockets.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
does it give you
Well,
some sort
maybe
of,
space shuttle. Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, true, yeah, of course, yeah. But does it give you some sort of like new ambition level? Like, where do you want your innovation to go? Of course, you're developing your products, but did he sort of move the bars?
He definitely moved the bars, but we were not competing with those bars.
No.
Is it
but
true?
for you, do you have a different endpoint? Sort of that's it, or do you keep on doing what you were doing and trying
No,
to do that
our
well?
strategy is still in the same in that respect. What you do see is that access to LEO, also with like the constellation that he is already also working on, they really change what is needed in the space industry, which is interesting to follow. But yeah, it's not for us right now to put that on our
No, that's probably
projected
smart.
future.
Do I understand this correctly? The smaller your rocket, the less important it is to reuse it?
No, it's always a balance between what you need and what's required and what's feasible. So obviously, like, our rocket is less expensive than a Falcon 9.
Sure.
The technology to refurbish it works better with liquid. We use solid rocket propellant,
Oh, I see.
and also the
Solid rocket propellant. Tell me about solid rocket propellant. Because I get liquid, but why did you choose solid?
The main advantages of solids are it's easy to transport, it's easy to launch.
Okay.
In easy, I would say, it's you make it once, you get the appropriate certification, and you can ship it all over the world. And it's
You make it yourself.
Yeah, we're working on making it ourselves.
Okay.
And
why is that? So you make your own rockets and then you make your own fuel.
Yeah, or propellant. Yeah,
Propellant. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. No. It's basically we knocked on the doors of various companies that can make rocket propellant in this world, and well, we're not too many doors to knock on, and we being like this company from Delft that has ambitions and not a existing track record, it was always really difficult to get good contracts and good relationships. So at a certain point, we figured, okay, this is way too annoying, too difficult, and too price prohibitive, and we can do it ourselves, and we can do it cheaper, and we can do it better. So that's when we started to work on our own production facility.
Really?
And we're now we have a signed lease in Deventer. It's a small city in Holland.
Deventer,
where we can. We'll be able to produce our own solid propellant in this year.
And what kind of
That's
propellant is it? It's super fun. Yeah. In Deventer, also a very quaint, nice town on a river. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're done working, then
hour from Amsterdam, a little more.
And how difficult is it to? I mean, do you need licenses? How about safety and stuff?
Yeah.
Do you have to jump a lot of hoops?
Well, we're not going to Deventer because of its nice, quaint city.
That's too bad. I'm going there this weekend actually to chill out in the woods there.
It's a good choice.
You have a place to visit now.
Exactly.
And it's also geographically not really close to our HQ and our development site in Delft.
Yeah.
But there's a site of Nourion, former Axo Nobel, and they're refurbishing, reusing it to accommodate high reactive chemical companies, companies that want to start up. So they have proper buildings. They have the infrastructure with regards to handling of goods.
Yeah, safety.
Yeah. So we're basically renting a building that has 60 centimeters thick walls.
Okay.
And
everything in place.
Everything in place.
What sort of propellant are we talking about? What is this chemical?
It's based on AP, so it's similar to the space shuttle boosters.
Really?
Yeah, but we're not aiming, as NASA probably did, for like ultimate performance. But our objective is more like obviously it's tailored to our own engine design, so we can customize our own formulation. But we're also aiming at an economical price point.
Yeah, and then being able to sell it.
Yep,
So
sure.
you'll be able to sell propellant.
Well, let's first sell rocket vehicles.
Yeah, okay.
And then we'll see.
Yeah.
So
cool.
At first you will be manufacturing fuel just for your own company.
Yep, it's single.
Okay. And when will production start? Any idea?
So if it's up to us, next week. But
next week.
But
Wow.
there's always if we're the first renters in this new environment, so we kind of have to lead the way in that respect.
Yeah.
So we're really eager to get started.
But you can literally start right away.
Technically, yes. But
Wow.
But the limitations right now is sometimes the red tape, the paperwork.
Really? That's what you're waiting for? Yeah. It's not the only thing that you do, of course. I mean, maybe this will be your one of the future new ventures. But you've also worked on Insight, I believe. We talked about it even on this show.
Yep.
What's up with you and Insight? The Mars mission, of course, that's figuring out how the geology of Mars works right now. Sending back really funny pictures of itself all the time. It's sending selfies back all the time. Yeah. It's very 2019. Yeah,
it's up there with the high tech stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, as I already mentioned, we had to pay the bills in the early phase of our company. So due to our contacts and experience, we were asked by DLR Bremen site to assist them with assembly, integration, and testing of
DLR is Deutsche Luftraumfahrt or something.
And what are they?
The German NASA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's the most international way to put it.
Okay, so that's a big shot
for sure.
company.
Yeah. No, it's an institute, but they're responsible for DLR as a whole is responsible for HP cubed, so the heat and properties payload that's currently on Martian soil. And we assisted with part of the assembly, integration, and testing at their site. And this is, one of the reasons why we were selected is we're knowledgeable. We know this stuff. We can quickly introduce people. And at a certain point, we were obviously asked, okay, can you help us out? We need people right now. Okay, let's say we can start a production propellant in 1 week. We can also work in Germany in 1 week. We just call each other up, like, okay, who has time to go? Okay, I go. And then we went there and did our work. We did our work.
Small company, versatile.
Yeah.
And
we did our
they
work.
Needed propellant?
No, they needed assembly, integration, and testing.
Okay.
So, there's a design, there are components of that.
And they thought only T- can do this.
Well, we
did actually mention the name of your company?
Yes, we did.
Remember. We did. Okay, sorry.
But it's good
T-
sometimes I get carried away.
T- engineering. Yes.
Yeah.
Now we did, Roel.
I think we should also mention the website T-.
Oh yeah, sure. Do your shout out.
Now
it's actually T-.
T-.
Right?
Thanks, Herbert.
Okay, enough of this.
Yeah. Let's move on with the conversation.
Yes, you're trying to take the point of the Patreon sponsors, I believe. Yes.
We should start that one as
So
well.
DLR needed somebody to do some testing.
When did this happen? When was this? Because Insight's already up there.
Insight is already up there. I think we ended the work with them around 3 years ago. We started our work with them maybe 5-6 years ago.
Okay, so they figured only T- can do this.
Well, yeah,
right.
Not that in that case, but we were the only. Well, we were one of the first that were asked, and we could deliver on such short notice.
Yeah.
Which was critical for them because there's always a time crunch. And once we were there, they saw what we did, and they asked us back, and then we were with 2 people over there, and then 3, and then during the weekends with 4, and then we had a house over there in Bremen where we stayed during the week, and we went back to Delft, and the company basically the T minus was like 90% in Germany, and doing the work in Holland was on a steady state. But being able to work on a Mars mission, it's kind of difficult
it's so
to
cool.
let go.
Yeah.
So you said testing, development, and assembly.
Assembly, integration, and testing.
Okay, yeah. So
Of what?
Yeah, well, I guess the question is so you assembled? Did you assemble something that's now up there?
It's difficult to say because once the mission for the LR side was complete, then we had like the flight hardware was partly assembled and integrated by us.
Oh yeah.
However, there was some delay in the project, and then they had some time to do alterations and improvements.
Mm-hmm.
So it might well be that they took part or reassembled or did a lot of new stuff.
Oh yeah, so you can be sure.
No, not sure. And because
that's crazy.
Because it's such
you don't even know if the thing that you built is there now.
Yeah.
Part of it for sure is, or parts. But because we left this assignment 2 years ago, it was like, okay, this is something that we put on a website and it's cool, and then it get launched and we announced
You're
it.
part of the team, of course. It's a huge team of people.
Yeah, it's an enormous team.
Yeah.
And then when it landed, it becomes more and more excited also for us. And now it's
working. Yeah.
Well, that's even also for me difficult to say, because now the latest information that I got, and it's the same information that everybody that has internet has, is that was released.
Yeah.
But there's if you look at like the system, there's a support structure, which holds a mechanical mole. This mole is going to dig into the Martian soil. So, but this mole obviously needs to, when it's active, needs to freely move down to the core.
Mm-hmm.
However, during transit and during all the other operations, it's locked in place. So I'm not sure if it's now released as in not locked in place anymore, or it's actually already drilling. So
I'm not sure either.
I'm waiting for the next selfie.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It was hanging there. Yeah.
It's intriguing.
One language thing that I just thought of is I keep on saying that inside is up there, but actually it's down there, up there.
I was also thinking about how about down there?
Yeah, is it? Yeah, is it? Yeah, it's
who's higher anyway?
Yeah, inside is down on Mars. Do you say it that way, or is it? It's on Mars, but it's sort of up there, but then you're
if
down.
If the sun is up, then Mars is surely down. On the other hand, if you imagining a gravity well.
Yeah.
The sun is way down there and Mars is really up.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we're going to have...
everything is relative, I think.
Everything's upside down.
Let me know when you figure it out.
Yeah, I do. Yes. Oh, hey, Roel, are you still here? Yeah, sorry. What I think is cool is that, so you were asked for this, right?
Yeah.
There is a ecosystem of these small startups, of small space startups that you are definitely a part of, that are all very hopeful for the future. I mean, everybody's ambitious and everybody's doing these things, but it's also sort of under the radar in a way.
Yep.
Like if you know about this field, then people know each other and they will be able to find each other. For the outside world, it's
a well-kept secret.
Yeah, you're a well-kept secret. Not only you, but the whole ecosystem you're in. Can you give us a little bit of insight in like who are your colleagues around you? Who are your competitors? Like, is there a vast ecosystem of these smaller scale companies? Or are you secretly the only one?
Well, what we do is unique, obviously. But
Sure.
Just making a joke.
T minus.
Now, what you really see in the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years is that there's a potential for this. There's room for these companies, for these smaller companies that make a big difference, and there's support from institutes, from government, but also support from customers.
And that's recent, you say?
I think it is. Yeah. Obviously, I wasn't in the business 10 years ago, But yeah, I think that has changed. If you look at, like, for instance, what happens with ESA, they have the business incubation centers.
Yeah.
It's a recent thing. I'm guessing, but I think they started something like 5 years ago, maybe more, 7 years ago, with 1 or 2 business incubators. So basically, a starting point for a company to get access to ESA, to get access to ESA knowledge, to be supported by technicians from ESA, but also to get into the ecosystem, to get into the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
Create a network.
Yeah, building a network and getting contracts and showing what you can do. Now, I think that it's my guess, maybe Google can tell, but there are probably 20 ESA BICs right now in Europe. I think almost every country contributing to ESA has one or multiple.
Yeah.
And that's something that's really inspiring. We were part of an incubation system that's run by the TU Delft called Yes Delft, and that in the early days has really helped us with getting off the ground.
Really?
For sure. It's really beneficial if you can talk to other founders, if you can discuss with mentors, if you can be supported by companies that want to support you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's a boring. I was almost saying boring, but even it's the functional requirement of administration and
of course,
finance,
overhead.
You can be assisted with that, but also on a technical note and really on a business note. So that has paved the way, I would say, a lot. But also, basically, access to space is not a purely governmental element anymore. It's not only spy satellites that
gets proven every day.
Yeah, and it's really moving towards just another industry,
which is super cool.
Yeah,
which is super cool. Not all will make it. I would assume. Have you?
No.
What do you see around you?
I see a lot of things popping up. I don't see any big
major failures.
Major failures, because the fields is still or the pie is not shared or not divided.
It's not a zero-sum game.
Everybody can start a company and do this, like you guys.
Yeah.
Do this completely new thing that nobody has done before, because, as we always say, space is pretty big.
Actually, who is the third Dutch space entrepreneur that we have on the show in a row?
Oh yeah.
Last week we had
of course,
Egbert Edelbroek from Space Life Origin. The week before we had Koen Janssen of Hyber.
Yeah.
So we have a real parade of space entrepreneurs here on the show.
Yeah. But
if you want more names,
are we quickly depleting them? That's also There's still plenty, but it's. I remember the story by Motherboard, the website of, I think it must have happened 5 years ago, where they just took a camera and they started walking through some halls. I think somewhere close to Stanford University, where it's like, hey, there's space startups here, and it was simply a new thing to see, like, the startup culture company. And then doing space, because it was like you said, it was always a governmental thing, vast and epic and large, but it's government
and Boeing.
Of course. No, it was always, the private industry was always part of it, but it was never something that you could do, so to speak, from your bedroom. You know, it's like you can start it from there. Or from a college dorm room in this case.
A lot of has changed with smaller satellites, with readily available information, with demonstration of companies that are successful. That have grown.
So when's your first landmark mission? Like what's the plan for the next, let's say, 2 years?
For the next 2 years, being the first company to reach space commercially from the Netherlands. Mm-hmm. That's a landmark that's on our list for this year.
Yeah.
However, getting the propellant site up and running, functional, getting the first static tests, those are also pretty big milestones that I easily step over, but are accomplishments by themselves. But it's all for the end goal, which is access to space for us.
And how do you? What's the name? You said it was above the Kármán line, but do you have a name already for that specific space that you're that you're reaching, you can redefine that area.
No, I don't think that they will accept it. Even for me, I'm not sure. Like the scientists, they have E region and certain.
E is for Eerkens.
Yeah,
right?
it could be
Eerkens
nice.
region.
We could always spin it like that.
Yeah.
If we do enough marketing,
You should. It's good for your branding. If you claim you're part
That's
of the
right.
atmosphere, that's.
I'll look into it.
Yeah.
I'll look into it. No, but there are certain regions. But yeah, our ambition is like the 120 kilometers and below that, because then you can drop into those, of course, and do measurement.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Throw your darts there.
One thing's for sure, in the future I will buy all my rocket fuel in Deventer.
Yeah, exactly. Deventer, where you go for your rocket fuel. Yeah. Okay. Roel.
Any more questions? No?
I hope to see this thing launch from the Netherlands once.
So do I.
Maybe the kingdom, but not here.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
you'll take an
You go
island
to the
somewhere in the
tropics,
Caribbean. Yeah.
close to the equator.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, or international waters. You never know.
Yeah, you never
Okay.
know. Hey, thank you, Roel. Thank you so much, and good luck to you. Yeah. Also
Thank you,
with the rocket fuel.
Thijs. Thijs Roes.
Thank you, Herbert.
My colleague.
Yes, and don't
Right.
blow up Deventer, by the way. Please don't. Hey, and thanks to all the listeners.
Yeah,
Had
thank
fun
you
today.
guys.
Thank you so much, and see you around.
See you next time at Space Cowboys. This was episode number 9.
And next week, we're going to probably do a roundup of many space stories together with Yuri that you've known from the show. And
Star Space Nerd.
yes, and in March, we'll probably have a conversation with Ed Stone from Voyager.
Looking forward to it.
JPL. Yeah, that's
Okay.
also coming up. Stay tuned.
Bye now.
Bye.